Chase and Grant, thanks for being on the State House today.
Thanks for having us.
Excited.
This is great. We've been talking about the film issue, the film incentive issue for a while, and I know we've been trying to get you guys on, and y'all are busy. Really watching SB 22, right?
Yep.
Okay. So for the audience and listeners, SB 22 is the film incentives bill that was a priority, Texas, a state priority by the lieutenant governor, and is already over in the House side, and it's getting ready to hit the floor soon. We hope, right?
Well, we have like 2 weeks.
Like 2 weeks. Hopefully, we only have, I think,
we have
14 days or something like
till
that.
the 27th.
27th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know. Okay, that's good. So tell me, first of all, maybe a little bit about Media for Texas, because your organization is specifically formed for that?
Yes, it was. So Grant and I are both filmmakers. We're also both sixth-generation Texans. And we met and sort of bonded over this shared passion for developing and doing whatever we could to get Texas and the Texas film industry more on the map, and sort of achieve our long-term goals of Texas being #1 in film production, but also creating a full ecosystem for film here in Texas, from development all the way through production and distribution. I got involved at the very end of last session. I was, for a couple of reasons. I was creating a short film, and the lead actress was involved last session, and she pulled me on. She said, we need more young people. Maybe you can come testify, XYZ. So I showed up at the very end of last session, and at the same time, my friend George Lane also asked me to come on board and help produce the Good for Texas video, which was the one with Dennis Quaid and Glenn Powell, the first one. And then also at the same time, I was trying to get my feature film off the ground, and I was done with development, script written. I had a financier on board, and I was trying to schedule production. And then while all this was happening, the financier came back to me and said, actually, I'm only going to greenlight your film if we move production to Louisiana. And so all of these things were happening at the same time, and I really took a deep dive into the incentive world to figure out what all was going on and why couldn't I shoot my feature here, and what was happening. Why was all this crew leaving? Why were we not seeing Texas movies being shot in Texas? And after last session, we have, there were some things I think that happened as to why nothing really got passed, or, I mean, it was still monumental in the lieutenant governor and what he did last session.
There were some issues I think held up a lot of stuff, so
Yes, but then I met Grant at the end of last session. He can tell you a little bit about him.
Yeah, absolutely. So meanwhile, Chase is trying to get her movie funded. I was in LA working in Hollywood, and I gave myself no more than 5 years out there to learn the business and then come back and attempt to do what we're doing now. But Chase and I happened to meet each other about 1.5 years ago, I would say, and just happened to be at a dinner, and we ignited over this passion to make Texas our own entertainment industry, if you will. And I think from there, the idea of Media for Texas, the idea of spearheading this initiative head on, was born, and we spent all of last year, because there's been a history to this incentive stuff ever since the inception, 2007. Every single session, the funding has yo-yoed up, and I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but anyway, we thought it was a perfect opportunity to form this company and try to rally all the community members and just have one voice going into session this year.
Yeah, and that's been successful because it finally got on the priority list, which, as in Texas, I don't know that people know this that watch us in other states.
Right.
We have this odd system here. Sometimes the lieutenant governor is the most powerful person. Sometimes the Speaker of the House is.
Right.
And in this case right now, the lieutenant governor is the most powerful person right now because he controls the Senate. And so getting him to make that a priority.
Yeah.
And you can tell by the number, 22.
Totally. And for
very high
people
priority.
who don't know, top 40 bills, SB Senate is a Senate bill. Top 40 bills are priority bills. So when so basically to sum up, the end of that story was Grant quit his job. He was at WME out in LA, the talent agency. Quit his job, moved down here. We founded Media for Texas. And the first thing we did was really work with the internal stakeholders that were already here. The legacy stakeholders being Austin Film Society, which is Rick Linklater's group, Troublemaker Studios, Robert Rodriguez, TXMPA, tons of other, Shineco, Stray Vista, where we're outside right now. They're a big partner. To really rally everybody together. But I'd say things really kicked off when we were able to co-host the premiere of the Reagan film with the lieutenant governor. last
Oh,
August.
yeah.
And Lieutenant Governor, announced to a room full of legislators and filmmakers, I want to make Texas the film capital of the world. And that's when we were like, wow, that is amazing. And we have such an amazing champion and leader in Lieutenant Governor. I mean, it's more than anyone could ever ask for. And obviously, we do not take full credit for anything and for everything, I'd say. Taylor Sheridan was very involved, Dennis Quaid, all these other legacy stakeholders. But because I think we've really dedicated the past year and a half just to this bill. That's all we do day in, day out. We set aside our careers to do this. So it's been really, really great, I think, with the amount of energy we've been able to bring to the movement.
Yeah, you almost have to. I mean, in a legislature like this where they've got a lot of big issues like vouchers and bail reform and property tax relief and all those other issues, to be heard, even at a priority bill, you have to kind of dedicate all of your time to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me a little bit about what the bill does, because it's, I just get snippets like everybody else. I've read as much as I can to try to figure out how this really benefits the industry and what part of the industry does it help really.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that.
I think number one, the bill needed to address two major issues that the program currently has and what sets Texas apart, not in a good way, why we are not competitive right now with the 37 other programs in the union. And that's the number one reason is because we are a short-term program. We have no longevity with our program, and therefore we have no stability. We have no guarantee that projects can get funding beyond a 2-year window because we were working on an appropriation system. And for the people who don't know, every session you can get cash allocated to the program through an appropriation, and then you have that cash for 2 years, and that's all you have. But if you think about a TV shows, they schedule for 5 seasons. So they don't want to plant their roots in a state where they don't know for seasons 3, 4, or 5 if they're going to get funding. That's just too big of a risk with too high of a budget. It's too risky. So they're going to go plant their, roots down in Georgia, in New Mexico, in Oklahoma, where there is a guarantee for the next 10 years that funding is there.
I was just going to ask you that. So they have a 10-year guarantee.
Almost every other program either has an unlimited, so it's never ending, there's no sunset, it's just permanently there, or at least 10 years.
But I think, if I can add, the whole reason why we're having this conversation is because incentives became a vital component of film financing 20 years ago. And I think Canada is a very big production hub currently, and they started their incentive late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. Same as Louisiana. I think Louisiana was the first state to create it here in the United States. But the issue is filmmaking is very expensive. It takes millions and millions of dollars just to produce a single shot at times, which is crazy. But what these Hollywood sees that, or people who want to make movies, they see that, and so they chase these film incentives all across the world. UK is a very large hub, and so to chase a story about working with the financier, I mean, that's the same case all over, where people will not finance a movie unless you have an incentive to back it.
Right.
So there's a reason why we're doing all this, essentially.
So, and oftentimes to really finish out the stability and the need for a long-term program, right now there's 3 months left of the current 2-year cycle that we're on. So if I wanted to make a movie that was shooting in October, I actually wouldn't know guaranteed right now that we'd even have funding like 4 months down the road. So we needed stability. So we needed to figure out a financing mechanism that allowed Texas to be able to promise a certain amount of funds every year for the next 10 years. This bill does that on a first level.
Okay.
And we can get into the details of how it does that.
Yeah.
But on a second level, it also gets us a more competitive rate of return. So a base rate, if you will. This is basically the percentage that the state gives back on your in-state spending. Okay. So this goes back to what Grant was saying with financiers needing to look at the bottom line. Okay, well, the UK is giving me 40% back on my budget. I have to factor in flying people over there, XYZ. Texas is only giving 5%, maximum 21.
That's what it is now.
That's what it is now. And that just can't compete with other states who have...
Well, our neighboring states.
All of our neighboring
us,
states.
Right?
25... I mean, actually, sorry, let me backtrack. About 30% is really the base that we're seeing across the union as a minimum. And right now our bill gets us close to that, and with uplifts gets us over that. And so it puts us in the realm of competition with a long-term and a competitive base rate. I don't know if you...
And you have these stories that are set in Texas. They're produced by Texas people, Texas actors, Texas directors, and they go film in New Mexico
Tell
or
Jeff's
Louisiana.
story.
What story?
Jeff's. Nichols.
we were interviewing Jeff Nichols a couple
Director
months
of
ago.
Mud.
Yeah.
Some other
Mud,
stuff. Yeah.
Loving, a couple other great stuff. Bike Riders came out recently.
Yeah.
He was filming a movie. I think it was Midnight Special. The movie.
Yeah.
They were filming in Louisiana, and they wanted to get a shot. It takes place in Texas, but they were filming in
The
Louisiana.
whole
They-
thing in Louisiana.
and they
course.
wanted to get a
Exteriors.
They want to get an exterior shot in Texas, but the producers told them it'll be cheaper for them to go on a private jet
Charter.
with all their crew, all their actors, fly over Texas, land in New Mexico, film the shot, than it would be just to drive 20 miles across the border. And
because
shoot
of
it.
incentives.
Because of the
Because
incentives.
incentives.
Because it's what? So it's what's the percentage in the bill?
So the percentage in the bill would bump us up to a 25% base.
Okay, 25% of your production costs
Of your
in-state spend.
in-state
of your
spend.
in-state spend.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's everything that's your salaries,
Yes.
your rental equipment, all that stuff.
And there's one little caveat which we think is great in that this is currently in the program as well. Each line item is capped at $1 million, so you can't pay, as much as we love Glenn, for example, you can't pay Glenn $10 million and get a full 25% of that $10 million. You can get 25% up to $1 million per person per line item, which basically just allows the state to not give money away just for A-list celebrities and not divvy it out correctly to other costs, if that makes sense.
Does everybody in the production have to be? Well, I should ask it this
Yes.
way.
I
Yeah,
know where you're
you know what I'm
going.
going to say. So
Yeah.
they need to be Texas based,
Texas
Texas
residents.
residents.
Texas residents. That include the actors?
Yep.
Yes.
Wow.
So you're only incentivized. You're only getting money if you are a Texas resident, essentially.
Wow.
You can
Okay.
still hire non-Texans,
You're
but
just not going to get the incentive for them.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is, a lot of some states, they don't actually give any incentive money for above the line actors, just because the prices get so high.
Yeah.
We think it's a very fair opportunity to give
Okay.
at
So
least
that
1
works.
million.
That works. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
And we're hoping that our beloved actors will continue moving home. Glenn lives here now. Matthew obviously has always lived here. Jesse Plemons, Austin Nichols,
Does
Adrian
Woody
Grenier.
live here? Because he was.
Woody has a residence here.
I thought so because he was.
Yeah.
He was testifying before committee, so I figured maybe he must be a resident.
Well, they're also shooting in Dripping Springs, which I don't know if you were listening to what they said, going back to more fun facts about incentives. So Woody and Matthew are shooting a show called Brothers in Dripping Springs right now.
Oh.
And
okay.
it
I've heard about that. I've heard about the shoot. I didn't know it was in Dripping Springs.
Yes, and Apple originally passed on Texas. They're like, cannot make the bottom line work. No way. We're shooting in Georgia. And I'm not going to, I wasn't in the room, I wasn't on the call, but from what has been told to us, and what Matthew has said on, in testimony is that, hey guys, we're not going to go live in Georgia for 3 months. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. But in order to make it work, Matthew and Woody had to take a 15% cut on their pay in order to allow the production to stay in Texas.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
After it was in their bank account.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
They sent it back.
They had to send a new check.
Yeah,
to
to write a
Apple.
little check
Yeah.
back. Okay. Yeah. That's always tough to do.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because it's the principle of having, this is just how filmmaking industry works in general. People have to go away to a faraway place for 3 months at a time
Yeah.
and do their filming. And it's just those guys at the height of their career, they don't want to leave their family for 3 months. And the same story for anyone else here in Texas, whether you're I don't know, a gaff working on a film shoot or you're Matthew McConaughey, everyone has to go out and leave because of the incentives.
Yeah. And I think for us, what this bill really achieves is the ability for Texans who want to shoot Texas stories in Texas. It's not going to put Texas as the most competitive, state in the union, which is fine because I don't think Texas is ever going to engage in that sort of rat race mentality. Just not who we are as a state. It's not how our legislature works. What this bill would enable is for these Texas stories that really should be shot in Texas but are going to New Mexico, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Georgia to be able to say, hey, we can shoot here, we can make it work. Because right now, the program is so uncompetitive that it's really difficult to even make a budget for Texas. It's difficult to even get Texas in conversation as an option.
Wow.
The way the program is designed is amazing. The governor's office has done an incredible job of ensuring that this program is for Texans, which I think other states don't do. And I think it's been a good thing that it's all happened this way, learning from other states' mistakes. But just in terms of like I said, longevity and the base rate, it's really difficult for big productions to consider Texas because it's just not as competitive as other states. So this bill would really put Texas on the table,
Yeah.
be able to enter the conversation, and for when the story at least makes sense for it to be in Texas for Texans who want to shoot here, it would enable us and other filmmakers to do so, basically.
Yeah. I would imagine Taylor Sheridan's pretty happy because he's
Yeah.
got a nice big giant piece of property where you can do a lot of shooting
Totally.
right here in Texas, which is great.
Yeah.
Um,
And he's been a huge champion and support. I mean, I think it really took Taylor planting his flag in Texas and saying, I'm going to come here and hopefully y'all figure out the incentives, but I'm shooting in Texas. I'm shooting these stories in Texas. I mean, he said in our first Senate hearing, that Hell or High Water, that was his love letter to Texas. That was, I think, the second script. Was
I
it the
remember
first
that,
script
yeah.
he wrote?
Maybe not,
Can't
no,
remember.
not his first, but that was his first Texas script, essentially.
And
Yeah.
they shot it in New Mexico.
Because this was my love letter to Texas, and they shot the darn thing in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Showing a lot
And
of
I
love.
Go in the movie, there's some mountains in the background, and I'm from Midland. That's
Yeah.
not quite West Texas.
Not quite. Yeah.
least
Yeah.
where
Kind
they
of
shot it in
dead
West
giveaway
Texas.
for a Texan. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
And
I
so
think so.
Taylor doing that showed just how much positivity it took someone at that level to come down and show just how much economic activity is created from a film shoot at that level. Because I
Yeah.
think it's hard to really picture until you see it. And you see how many jobs, and you see, I mean, one of my favorite stats is on 1883, which is an 8-episode miniseries. Taylor spent $7.8 million on hotels alone. He saved some boutique hotels from going under. That's pretty incredible, and that's just one fact of tons that he has from all of the productions he's done. And then the other group, I don't know if you want to add about Chosen.
Well, to add on to Taylor's story, when they were filming Lawman, Bass Reeves, small town, Sharon,
Mm-hmm.
Texas,
Yeah.
540 people, they spent over $1 billion a day over the course of a week pouring
Yeah.
into that economy. And
It's
the number
completely changed
the number
now.
that's floated around all the time is for every $1 in, $4 out in ROI for
Or
the state.
69.
$4.69. But what people don't think about is the long-term effect, because you're putting money in the pockets of the police officers that you're hiring, the
Yeah.
local carpenters.
Well, those small towns
electricians.
they
Yeah.
need something. And
Yeah.
all you got to do is
It
drive
it makes a
through
small business
Texas, and you can see how the small
You
towns
should
are
go
just-
check out Stephenville too, if you haven't been.
I haven't been there in a while.
It's fully, I mean, is that where they shot some of Bass Reeves there too, right? What was Dennis shooting there?
I think they filmed some of 1923 there.
And it's like a whole, it's
Oh
become-
yeah, because Sid Miller, our ag commissioner, has
Yeah.
his ranch there, and I think
Yes.
didn't they shoot on his place?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think it was for that, and I think he was in it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
He was in. I mean, I saw it because I
Yeah.
know Commissioner Miller very well, but I remember seeing, he had the whole costume on and everything,
That's
and of course he loves it.
amazing.
Well, he is a cowboy,
Was
so
that for
Yeah.
1923?
That was for,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was. I don't think it
Um,
was It was the 1883 one because I think it was
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. No, it was the 1883 because he was.
yeah, I think it was 1883.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
That makes sense. That would make better sense.
Yeah, well, you
But
think about. I was thinking about what he was wearing, and it wouldn't have been.
No.
Yeah.
And he shot at the Capitol for 1923 briefly, and some of our buddies
That
at the
was Landman.
Capitol.
Landman,
Oh, that was
briefly.
Landman. Get them
Oh,
all
yeah.
confused. Who was in the back? One of the guys.
One of
that-
the employees of the Capitol. That
Yeah, we were like, we know the back of that head. It's
That's
pretty
funny.
funny.
Yeah.
But our goal is to get all the legislators on set at some point.
Oh, they will love that.
Mhm. James LeBall is a part of our team. I don't know if you know him. We want to
Yeah,
get
oh, yes.
him and Mike Morrissey behind a bar in
Mike.
some saloon.
Oh my God, he's
right?
yes, the financial genius. He's
Yeah.
an old friend. Well, both those guys are.
Yeah.
Because I've been around a long time, so like I know all these people.
Right.
They've been around forever, and they're wonderful people. Mike Morrissey's one of the best people ever.
Yeah, he's amazing, and I mean, just his look is amazing too. He deserves to be in a movie.
He is special. He
Yeah.
definitely has a special look to him.
So our first Western piece, we're gonna put Mike and James in a saloon somewhere with some rolls.
That
so
is awesome. You have to tell me when because I want to show up for
yeah,
that.
for sure.
I something I was thinking about. So, do the other states have the same kind of? I don't want to call them restrictions because I don't mean it that way, but Texas. But this is very Texas specific, right?
Yeah.
Are the other states that way, or do they, you don't have to? That's not set up that way. Okay.
And this is where I go back to saying I think the governor's office has done a fantastic job setting the program up for success
Mm-hmm.
and for longevity in the sense that it has these protections in it that really benefit the citizens more than enabling people to just come in, use the space, and then leave.
Okay.
Most states don't have a lot of requirements. Most states don't have a residency requirement. Most states don't have a shooting number of days requirement or
So there's multiple levels
Yes.
of things that help Texans and
Yes.
Texas economy
yeah.
versus just,
It all
renting
serves
out
to put
Georgia.
more money in the pockets of Texans, essentially, and to ensure
Yeah.
that this
Yeah.
investment in the state is a good investment. It provides really robust ROI. Whereas
Right.
other states, they kind of tend to just open the doors,
Mm-hmm.
let everyone come in, do their thing, and then go back home. But
And I think the result of that has been pretty clear in that those states, I mean, while they do bring a lot of money in still through the productions, those states are really production facilities for Hollywood. So it's California coming, the decisions are still made in California, the financing is still in California, and then they just deploy and they use all these other states to shoot in. Texas, we believe, will be different. Because Texans are different. We have our own stories. We have our own culture here, really. We
Yeah.
really think that the way the bill is set up and the way the governor's office has done it will enable Texas to actually utilize this spurt of energy and this increase in production to develop a full ecosystem, because it really protects Texans and it benefits the communities in the state, and it will enable us to create our own ecosystem here, where we have, like we mentioned before, financiers, we have development of creative executive roles, we have writers moving here, we have agencies here. I mean,
Yeah.
Texas is a huge state.
I've noticed, and because I'm a podcaster, I've
Right.
paid more attention to that side, the digital media side of things.
Totally.
And I've noticed that really when Joe Rogan moved here,
Yep.
it's just about, I'm watching a podcast and they're always in Austin. And so I'm like, how many people have moved here? So it's been incredible
Right.
to see the movement. But it does bring up a question. So what forms of media does this actually benefit? Is it really just focused on just film and TV, or is it any media,
Any moving image media.
any moving image?
So it's called the Texas Moving Image Incentive Program, TMIP. It's TMIP with a lot of
So
eyes in the middle.
I could raise my hand.
Yeah,
and-
you could totally. You can also, if you're at a series on a smaller level, like commercials, it also benefits commercials
Okay.
and episodics type of content. I don't have the full specifics, but you can also tally up some of your productions together. So if you can put multiple productions together to get to the minimum buy-in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, isn't it 250,000?
For
That's kind of like you have to have at least a budget.
of 250,000.
Of 250,
Yeah.
okay.
Which has always been that way. Commercials are 100,000.
Oh,
yeah, so
Okay.
as proposed in the bill, if you spend a minimum of $250K, you get 5% all the way up to $1 million. And from $1 million to $1.5 million, you get 10% back. Then $1.5 million and above, you get the full 25.
okay. So it's graduated up to.
Yes.
Okay.
Graduated up.
Okay.
You're incentivized to spend more.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
But you can also still have all these amazing uplifts that are put in the bill now too.
Tell me, but what is it? What do you say uplifts? What does that mean?
So that's an extra percentage that will go towards what the state gives. Basically, will be added upon that 25% or that 10% or that 5%. It's a little extra 2.5% if you meet a certain criteria that goes towards your whole budget. So, for example, if you hire 5% of your crew is veterans, former veterans, you get an extra 2.5% back on your total in-state spend from the state. There's another one if you shoot in a rural community, you also get 2.5%. If you have a project that's about Texas heritage or Texas history, anything that's about Texas, there haven't been that many projects that have gotten that uplift so far. There is one that was about an oil story out in West Texas. They did get the heritage one. There's also, they're giving a new uplift for faith-based projects, just to, most of the time, a lot of these uplifts are actually targeted at the lower spend projects to help
to
them
give you to help,
to help
you
you
out.
move up
Yeah.
from 5% all the way, because they're stackable. You could get all of them. So even if you're at 5% starting because you have a lower budget project, there's a lot of these incentives that you could get to get up to 15%, basically.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if I spend $2 million in the state, and I just have the base rate of 25%, I'll only get $500,000 back. And if I spend $2 million but achieve those uplifts and get 30% back, then I'll get $600,000. I think that's
Right.
That's the math.
I don't know. You're doing the math on the
Yeah,
spot.
I'm
so
going to go with your math. That sounds good. But
Anyway.
I like the way that's set up, because it's incentivizing you to
yes, do
to-
other things.
Yeah, do other things. Yeah,
Mhm.
and tell me if I'm wrong, because it could have changed. But is there a commission set up
Yeah.
to review scripts and that sort of thing? How does
Yes.
that work?
So the film commission has always been around. Every
So
state,
it's part of it's just a film commission.
it's in the governor's office.
It's in the
yes.
governor's office. Okay, so
So
there's
that's
nothing
when
new.
Yeah, nothing new. That's when I refer to the governor's office. It's because the film commission is in the governor's office. So they've been around since 2001, 2007. Actually, their
The
birthday is
Texas
coming
Film
up
Commission
tomorrow.
was formed in 1971.
Okay. The program has been
Program's been
yes.
around since 2007. Well, 2005 technically.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got our first funding in 2007.
Yeah, their
Oh.
birthday is actually on Saturday.
Oh,
I don't remember what year it is for them, but
54 years old.
so they've always reviewed the projects. Every state has a film commission. They all review projects. There's been some commotion and some, talk about, oh, what does this mean? They're reviewing everything, and there's like this line in the code that says must not show Texas in a negative light. This is pretty common.
yeah. I think I read that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We read during our research year before we got into the year of this session. We read every single act that was passed into law in every other previous state regarding film incentives. So we read line by line all 37 programs that were passed in other states. Almost all of them have a similar line in there. Must not show the state in a negative light. No pornography, just things that make sense. Obviously, it's state funding.
Okay,
It's
so
state
it's-
money. It's not. People are, I think, trying to make it a little bit more deep than it is. It's if you have just think about it in a common sense way. It's state money. They're not going to fund pornography. They're not going to fund something that completely bashes the state.
Right.
I think it makes common sense. It's been there since the start of the program, and we've still had all these amazing,
Okay.
wonderful
so it's
projects.
It's nothing new. It's
nothing
not,
new.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that the people that are opposed to doing this program,
Yeah,
I'm sure they found that little nugget and they
Right.
made something out of it.
totally.
Yeah.
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 We have some various opposition for various reasons, and I think it stems from just a little bit of miscommunication about what the film industry does for a community on one sense, what this bill would do for Texas, and just about this all in general. I think sometimes Texans hear Hollywood and they're like, not for Texas, but there's so many
Yeah.
other ways to look at it. No one's really pitching that. We're all pitching Texans making movies in Texas and having the opportunity to do so and not being forced to leave the state just to get a job. No one else has to do that. Lawyers don't have to do that. Almost every other industry you can find work in Texas, really, except for long-term film industry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good. That's
not a Hollywood handout.
yeah.
Well, and I think that's why it's great for y'all to be doing this because, I think that is what a lot of people think because you don't, people just, they take what they first thing they hear about it
Right.
and they go with that and instead of looking a little deeper into what the whole purpose of,
Yeah.
and I really don't know what the idea was or the impetus for the earlier versions of this
Right.
could have been more, what they're concerned about.
Right.
But this one clearly has been focused and written specifically for Texas
Yes.
and Texans,
Yeah.
which is it's really pretty cool. And y'all
Totally.
y'all done a great job on that. What else? So if you're if you want to build a studio
Say,
here,
yeah.
you're thinking the same thing. If you want to build a studio somewhere in Texas,
Yeah.
how does this benefit you? How does this help you?
So there's no direct, and this I think goes back into when we talk to legislators as well. Think about the long-term ROI, the stuff that you're not seeing on even direct spend from movies. There's lots of secondary, tertiary ROI that comes as well. I would say secondary ROI comes from just tourism. People spend a lot of money to travel to places where things have been filmed. It's been tracked and the data has been found in other states and other countries.
I'll give you a quick story. We were talking to a woman who works for the town of McKinney,
Yes.
city of McKinney, north of
Outside of
Dallas.
Dallas, yeah.
And that's where they filmed the 1970s movie Benji.
Oh,
The British film.
Yeah.
British film. They came over
dog.
across the pond.
they filmed that in McKinney.
Decided they
Yeah.
were going to film it right in McKinney.
I had no idea.
Every year, they still have a McKinney Fest. and
Or I don't
they
know if it's
get-
every year, but
Wherever, however, they have a
It's
statue
big.
in
They have a
town.
statue
They have
for
a statue of
Benji.
that
Of
darn
Benji.
dog.
yeah.
It
Right
was
there.
huge. I mean, Benji
Yeah.
was huge. I mean,
People
They
travel
sell
from
like a-
all over
That
just
movie is
still
over
to come
50
to
years
McKinney.
old, and they travel just to see that statue, just to come to the
Yeah.
festival. And believe it or not, the whole Magnolia stuff in Waco with
Yeah.
Chip and Joanna.
Yeah.
They are
Oh, yeah.
the #2 trending tourist destination in the United States, and recently
Is Waco.
surpassed the Alamo as #1 tourist destination in Texas.
Wow.
Because
All
people want to go
because
see where
of that
Magnolia.
media.
Waco beats
Waco.
the Alamo.
Yeah, Waco Beats
Okay.
is
That's
second
true.
in the states, in the whole country,
Wow.
as anyways, because of the film stuff, you know.
Okay.
That's a long-term ROI we're talking about.
Yeah.
But on
Yeah.
top of that as well, what really happens is the development of studios. And so studios come if there's stability within a program. So that's a perfect reason why we need this long-term program as well, not just to attract the TV, multiple season shows, not just to keep people who want to shoot here, but to allow for studio developers to know, okay, if I'm going to dump $200 million into a studio facility build, it's going to take me 2 years to build this at least. Multiple years, it's done in stages. I need to know that at least by the end of the time that I'm building this thing, that there's going to be incentive funding. Ross Perot Jr. has been a great advocate. He has testified as well. He testified in our second hearing, and someone from Hillwood testified in this last hearing as well. He is working with Taylor Sheridan to develop studios at his Alliance
Over
infrastructure.
at the Wayport.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're looking into developing studios, and he did a really great testimony. He said, how can the state expect me to put all this money into development if I cannot have some guarantee that I'm going to be able to make a profit or fill this space up with shoots? And so what also comes from studio developments is most of the time these studios aren't just freestanding spaces anymore. They come with apartment complexes. They come with they have to diversify the building.
Multi-use
Yeah.
developments. And
Yeah.
You have
And so-
restaurants, retail, hotels, et cetera, et cetera. They're trying to develop a concept like that outside of Mansfield, but they're waiting on this incentive to pass in order to build
Lots
it.
of
Okay.
waiting. There's one in San Marcos, Bastrop, Mansfield. There's
Fort
about
Worth,
Houston.
Amarillo,
A lot of
Houston,
people,
yeah.
they're ready to go. They've bought the land. They've got the shovels ready.
so they're
have-
just waiting for
waiting
this.
for the bill.
Really?
And so when you
Okay.
think about something like TEF, the Texas Enterprise Fund,
Yeah.
which does a lot, which is generally considered a great program, we think it's a great program as well. It incentivizes big, organizations.
It's just true. You can stack a lot of these things. I didn't think about that. You're right. So if you have this incentive, you've got the Texas Enterprise Fund. You've
Yeah.
got the incentive if you're in a kind of an
Rural.
underserved area. I can't
Totally.
think of the name of the program, but there's a lot of ways to make that work.
So I don't think that the studios would qualify for the TEF, but the point of bringing that up is basically the states.
Why would they?
I mean, it would be a whole other process, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, one of the biggest TEF ones was the Apple campus that they incentivized to come be built outside of Austin through the Texas Enterprise Fund.
Okay.
It's a
It might be that you have to have so many employees that
Upfront.
are full-time employees.
Yes.
Up front. Yeah.
But
Well, why don't you
basically,
tell-
what they're getting is free, major development infrastructures on similar levels as what TEF actually incentivized to come to the state for free. Without any extra incentive money, they are getting these huge developments just because they're incentivizing the films, which is like the reward in a little bit of a way. But what you get out of that is incentivization for entire ecosystem to be brought and developed and built here in Texas.
Right.
And all you have to do is incentivize the films. Everything else is going to come because the films are here. The TV shows, the moving images are here. So that's what we try to get the legislators to understand, is that the ROI is don't just look at the sales tax revenue that one film production brings.
Right.
What you're getting is all of this infrastructure and this development around the need to sustain these films here consistently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Another thing that came to mind is talent. So, is there anything in the bill that helps to develop talent, or is it sort of indirectly helping to develop talent? Because obviously, and there's all kinds of people that are going to be working on a film
Totally.
project, but there's everything from, and I know that Matthew McConaughey has his classes
Yeah.
at UT, so that's one aspect of it.
As a
But
former student.
yeah,
Yeah. There's some money floating around currently in the state budget to go towards workforce development. Of course, as a big component of all of this, you have to
Yeah.
have the incentive, the infrastructure, and the workforce. Texas, some film lingo here currently, we're about 5 deep across the state, meaning we can supply support about
Is it 5 deep?
I mean, it's 2 here in Austin, about
Okay.
2 in Dallas, maybe like 1
Yeah.
or 2 elsewhere. But meaning we can host about 5 full feature-length productions and TV shows at once and have enough crew to supply them.
Georgia's probably about like 20
Georgia,
deep.
Wow.
maybe.
California is probably about 50 deep. Don't quote me on these numbers.
Yeah,
That
we're
seems
just
a little
this
high.
general is generalizing.
That's kind of the
probably
gold
30.
standard over there. I mean, they
Yeah.
had been doing it forever.
Right.
So
Absolutely. And so when you're pouring $1 million a year into your program over in Georgia and you have 30 deep crew, I mean, that just creates a very robust environment. And
Yeah.
here in Texas, we only have 5. So it's very crucial that we develop that workforce. And UT is certainly doing a phenomenal job at RTF, our alma mater. And then you have Texas State, A&M. A&M actually has the number 2 animation program
in the country.
Really?
in the country. Yeah, but what's unfortunate about all this is that
Students
we
leave.
are essentially subsidizing the education of other states' workforce because there's a significant amount of brain
well,
drain.
right. That's
going
right.
on.
You get your degree and then
Our
you
stories-
leave to go somewhere
We
else.
graduated, we left because there's no industry here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we both
left.
We are supplying other states' workforce.
Yeah. Okay.
And so this incentive will help reverse that trend and put more of those dollars. Again, just the long-term ROI will put more of the dollars back in pockets
fact,
of Texans.
I'd say that even when we both got external advice saying you're going back too early, you haven't, made a name for yourself yet, would not recommend you move back to Texas yet. But we were like, well, we're just going to do something about that because we want to come home.
Make it
there's
work.
a lot of
So-
feedback we get on comments, and I think we've strayed away from the question, but would love for this to pass. My kids work in the film industry, some of them in Georgia, some of them in California. They desperately want to come home. This is what it comes down to. Texans who want to be in Texas, they just want to work here.
Yeah.
And that's really what it all boils down to. Yeah, ROI, development, money in for the state, but also the opportunity for Texans to live in their home state and work in this industry,
Yeah.
which is great for the state too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of
so-
people leave and then they do come back.
Yeah.
So instead of fighting for a seat at the table elsewhere, let's just come back to Texas and build our own because we do see it from time to time again, all of these Texans that move there. It's just a very cutthroat environment in these other markets and they make their way not quite to the top and they're in their mid-30s. They get burned out, they move back, there are no opportunities available for them because we don't have an industry here. And then they're left, what do I do? Because they moved back because they don't want to raise that next generation in California,
Yeah.
Georgia, New York, wherever, because their home's here, their network's here. And we have the same, you have a thriving healthcare industry, finance,
Right.
tech, oil and gas, just
Fashion's
the one component.
moving here too.
Fashion's moving here.
Yeah.
Just
Digital,
where's the
even
media?
digital media is
Digital's
here
big.
already.
Yeah, digital's here. And gaming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
So gaming qualifies for this program as well.
gaming qualifies. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's what my son's actually studying is
Animation,
game design.
But back to what the question was, because I remember it now. There's about 60 million right now in the biennial budget, or how does that say?
It's a biennial budget.
Yeah,
for
I think it's
for
30.
2-year budget.
30 a
million,
year.
30 or 15 a year.
No, I think it's 30 a year. I think it's 30 a
Yeah.
year right now. Could be 15 a year. It
This
was
is for workforce
for
development.
workforce development that nonprofits and higher education can apply for grant funding to help develop workforce programs for crew. They're already doing something similar in Tarrant County College, helping Taylor get more crew for his shoots.
Yeah.
That's been successful. Media for Texas moving forward, we have been really involved in this lobby effort and this lobby push, but we hope to add on, more nonprofit elements of our organization as well. And we'll look into workforce development for vets, as in veterans, for, anyone who wants to take some of these workforce classes, something we're looking into and toying with right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So so when this bill hopefully passes in the
Fingers
next
crossed.
fingers crossed. I know that's with everything right now, but it has a good chance because it's pretty far along. It just
Yeah.
needs to get scheduled and calendared.
yeah.
And as long as there's not some blow up on the floor, which who knows?
You never know
You
about
never know.
that, though.
A lot of landmines out there.
Yeah.
When that happens and development starts to occur, of course,
Yeah.
it won't be probably made immediately effective. So you're talking about September.
September. Mhm.
And are you going to continue this effort? Or are you going to move
Sure.
more towards the film? Are you going to try to do both?
We're going to try to do both. We
Yeah.
are both filmmakers, so we want to get films off the ground too. But we also, we love what we've created with Media for Texas. It's been so amazing. I mean, the community has been amazing. We love working with all these stakeholders, and we do feel like we've energized, we've brought energy to it, and, especially with also the up and coming generation too. So we don't want to just leave Media for Texas and walk away from
Yeah.
it. We want to see what we can create from it. And we're sort of in the process of right now of figuring out what those next steps look like. I think eventually we would love for someone else to come in and, you know, be running Media for Texas while we're doing more of the film thing, while
Right.
always staying on the board. But I think Media for Texas is in a really good position to sort of be the central hub through which a lot of, you know, this industry development can happen.
Yeah.
And we want to be there to continue doing that. So
That's great. Well, this is, you know, this has been really great information, because I know that our listeners and viewers really don't get, this is why I do this, because people don't really get the inside story about what's really happening at the Capitol. They hear these numbers thrown around. They're like,
totally.
$500 million. Why are we doing that? Well, there's a real
Right.
reason behind it, and it could impact you positively,
Totally.
personally, or your family. So I really appreciate y'all doing this and
course.
helping to educate people on all of that. Is there anything you want to kind of put out there?
I think also it's interesting because we always in Texas we talk about stuff in terms of the biennium.
Right.
So 500 million seems like so much, but it's actually only 250 million a year. And to that 250 million a year would actually place us around 5th or 6th only. We would beat out our neighbors of New Mexico, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, which is our big
Okay.
to-do list, because they're taking all the Texas stories. They're stealing our stories, basically. But we would still be behind a lot of other major states
Yeah.
who are giving, I mean, just to put it into perspective, Georgia gives out $1 billion a year, and every year in incentive money. New York just passed a bill to get $750 million a year. California is at $350 million a year. Illinois is at $650 million a year. So a lot of states are giving out hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
We're just asking to beat out our neighbors so that people who want to do business in Texas can still do business here.
Yeah.
And we're asking for that $250 million a year. It might be lowered, it might not be, we're not sure, but we just really want to get at that bare minimum buy-in level.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, because I think, you know, you'll have 2 years to sort of prove things up,
Right.
and then you can always, you know,
Can
look at the
always-
next session
exactly.
and add to it. So that's good to know, though.
And I think Texans are never wanting to, you know, like I said, join the rat race and just be like begging people to come do business here. You gotta want to do business in Texas. You gotta want to be here. You gotta want to live here. You know, we're not gonna like try and, you know, convince anyone who doesn't want to be here to be here. All we're trying to do is get, you know, a seat at the table, basically.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, y'all have done a great job, and I'd like to hopefully get you back after it passes.
We would
course,
love to.
yeah.
And let's
Fingers
talk about what's
crossed.
next,
Yes,
you know, and
for sure.
and then maybe do you know, want to go through and look at we're actually in close to Dripping Springs,
Yeah.
where and at a studio, and we're gonna go through and talk a little bit about
Yeah.
what the studio looks like. I've actually never been in this
It's awesome.
studio. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I appreciate it, and
For sure.
hope to see you.
If I
Oh,
can
go ahead.
conclude, obviously, big shout out to Joan Huffman, Senator Joan
Yeah.
Huffman,
Oh,
Lieutenant
yeah.
Governor Dan Patrick.
She's awesome.
And Todd
Representative
Hunter,
Todd.
author on the House side. I mean,
course.
just grateful for everything they are doing to help champion this bill and get it across the finish line.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
fantastic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lieutenant Governor's your you know, you got him
He's
on
amazing.
you got what you need, you know,
Yeah.
but Senator Huffman and Todd Hunter, both just really great
Yeah,
legislators,
really
great
great
people.
champions.
Yeah, they are.
And Lieutenant Governor, and same with Senator Huffman and Todd Hunter, did an amazing job at listening to the community and listening to the filmmakers, listening to Taylor and Matthew and Dennis and also the crew, and taking all that feedback and putting it into a bill that actually makes sense, not only for Texans, not only for the Ledge, but for the film community too. So that's really incredible, and I feel like very rare. So we feel very lucky and blessed to be able to have such great leaders.
Yeah. Wonderful. That's fantastic. Well, thanks again, and
Yeah,
we'll
thank
see
you.
you probably in another couple of weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.